Come on then, hurry up. We've got about, 20 minutes before the England versus Senegal match starts, the World Cup match starts. Excited. Also excited about what I'm having after that for dinner. Lamb Rogan Josh.
Where's the lamb Rogan Josh from?
What do you mean, where's it from? It's from Waitrose.
No, where is it really from?
What do you think? This is, Buckingham Palace and you're interrogating me?
Yes, where is it from, really?
Okay, you got me. It's from the reduced style.
Yeah, I thought so. Welcome to the Shabby and Man podcast. We are partners, parents, podcasters, broadcasters,
and everything else in between.
Now, a lot has happened in the world since we last recorded an episode 2 weeks ago. And, the World Cup is one of the big things.
Lots of things always happen, but anything specific to us or just...
Specific to us, exciting, interesting things that don't happen every day. The World Cup comes around every 4 years. And the last time we recorded an episode, it was on the day of the opening ceremony. That's what you reminded me, right?
It was, yeah.
So, mercifully, England's still here, still playing, as you say. Their next match is about to begin very soon.
We could have recorded this in 2 hours' time, knowing the result.
Yeah.
But then we thought, we might be a bit depressed. We might as well be upbeat.
Speak for yourself. You might be depressed. I'm not really that into football at all. But
you've been watching the cricket?
No, not really.
Kabaddi?
No. Coco, if you must know. But
Coco Chanel?
Oh, please.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, so the big sporting event, of course, is the World Cup. But even otherwise, I've had a couple of very exciting few days, work-related in a way. But Sanjay Leela Bhansali, one of Bollywood's biggest directors, was in London. And
give a little context for those who are not familiar with his work. On top of my head, I would say Dev Das.
Yeah, Dev Das, Khamoshi was the first one, Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam.
Big hit of his.
Big hit. Lately, of course, Guzarish, Savariya, Black. Many people also love, Savariya and Black more than his other commercial hits. But lately, the trilogy with Ranveer and Deepika, which is Bajirao Mastani, Ram Leela. Well, to say it in the right order, Ram Leela, Bajirao Mastani, Padmavat.
And I think he's in town to drum up support for Gangubai
Kathiawadi. He was at the BAFTA doing Sanjay Leela Bhansali masterclass. This was last week. And it was riveting. It was fantastic. I got a last-minute invite. So I'm not quite sure if his visit was planned at the last minute or they tried to keep everything hush-hush until the last minute. But I got an invite at the last minute and I'm so grateful. And it was fantastic. It's not very often that you have a director of his caliber sit with an audience, watch clips from some of his big films and explain the backstory, give you the context, tell you what he was going through in his life, in his career, why he made it the way he did, what was happening behind the scenes with some of the actors, how they conceived certain scenes, how they executed certain shots which have now come to become iconic, to hear it straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. Absolutely fantastic.
And you met him twice.
I met him twice because I also had the honor, and I would call it an honor, to interview him one-on-one at the Savoy. Now, sadly, I can't reveal any more than that at this point because all of that is embargoed for another few days.
I'm sorry. Are you giving these starry vibes to us?
No, I'm not
I'm
not giving starry vibes, but you like to point out that, we've got such a loyal and wonderful fan following across the world in so many continents. So obviously, if I've signed an embargo which says I can't talk about the details of that one-on-one interview until the 7th of December, then I'm afraid, my wonderful podcast listener, you will have to wait until the next episode.
Oh, you mean your lips are sealed?
My lips are sealed. But it was
a hint.
It has to do with music. Let's leave it at that. It has to do with, not with film, but with music. So yeah, it was fascinating. And कई बार लोग कहते हैं कि when you meet your heroes or you meet someone who is so famous, sometimes you're bitterly disappointed because the reality doesn't match up to the image. But
never meet your heroes.
Never meet your heroes. But I think in this case, I was pleasantly surprised because I didn't know what to expect because he's a man who's quite media shy. You don't see too many interviews with Sanjay Leela Bhansali. He's quite outspoken. I love that. And he's got a wicked sense of humor, which is fantastic. So, it was fantastic. I can't actually talk about the subject of the interview, but I can tell you that it was in one of London's iconic hotels on the South Bank, on the North Bank actually, across the river from the South Bank, the Savoy. Again, a hotel that you like to talk about a lot.
Why?
Because you apparently worked in a hotel not far from there during your hotel management days.
I trained at the Strand, yes.
Yes. So it was fantastic. It was one of those sweets that you see.
I actually worked for a little while, I mean a very brief while, in Simpson's on the Strand, which is owned by the Savoy, by the way.
Yeah, which is a tea shop, right? Where people, it was the place to go and have afternoon tea.
It was a tea shop. What do you think?
What do you call it? A tea salon. What are they called? Where people go to.
It was a very upmarket restaurant for afternoon tea.
Yeah, that's
it really wasn't a tea shop.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, it wasn't exactly the Ritz or the what's the other one on Piccadilly?
It is the Ritz.
No, the one on Piccadilly, the famous one.
The Ritz.
The one which
right
has
opposite Green Park. It's the
one
Ritz.
which has a royal warrant where people go to have tea. The one which is green on the outside.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
जिसका jute bag आपने मुझे खरीद के दिया है.
That's not a hotel. That is Fortnum and Mason.
Fortnum and Mason, which is where having tea is very famous, is what I'm saying. If you don't go to the Ritz, it's not exactly Simpsons on the Strand, not exactly having tea at Fortnum and Mason, but it was in its glory days. I'll give you that.
It's where all the politicians used to
It's where all the politicians would be. So that was quite an exciting thing. Also, I spoke about this the last time, as you reminded me. My NFT, my non-fungible token, is now out. It's a collaboration with a photographer and painter and a pianist. And it is our homage, tribute, call it what you will, to 50 years of Pakiza, which is an iconic film. Kamal Amrohi, Meena Kumari. Well, anyone who loves their Bollywood classics would know what I'm talking about.
So how do these things work? Someone has to pay you in... get the hep word I'm going to use now. Someone has to pay you in crypto.
Well, I'm not quite sure. So it is a tangible piece of art that he's selling for a sum.
What I do know about NFTs is it's a one-off.
Yeah.
Once someone buys it, it's theirs.
Yeah, it's a one-off, and obviously it is not tangible, so it stays online. But after that, they can do what they want with it, in the sense that they could use my narration, they could use his painting, they can use the piano piece separately, and I'm not quite sure how they could reuse or recycle, but it's entirely their property because they will pay for it for this one-off. So no copies should ever... It is like a Van Gogh, I suppose, or a Picasso, you know. If copies emerge anywhere in the world, then you know it's a fake, because only one was made. So it's quite... the only reason I agreed to it was because A, it's collaborating with people I adore. B, it's a film that I love. C, it sounds very hip and new.
You thought you want to get on there. NFT ladder.
Not knowing what the ladder is or where it is leading. But those of my friends who are into crypto and those who invested heavily into crypto were telling me, oh, beware of these things because no one really knows how safe they are as an investment. I said, well, all I have invested in is my voice, because this is something we were just trying out. But obviously, once it's sold, then we're all going to be getting... I don't know whether I'm getting paid in bitcoins or actual money. I have no idea. But it is what it is.
Who knows, you might get paid in coins and bits.
Yeah, that is a possibility as well. What else? You were quite affected by the news that one of your favorite bands lost a member this week.
Oh, yeah. You're right. It was Christine McVie from Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
The reason why I was really affected is not because everyone loves Fleetwood Mac. Yeah? And just to give context for those who don't know that their album Rumours, was it like 77? 1977 sold 100 million copies, and what made it astounding was the fact that everyone in that band was fighting with each other. Christine McVie was married to John McVie. They had kind of split up. Lindsey Buckingham was married to Stevie Nicks. They were splitting up. Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, it's a bit like.
Fleetwood Mac is actually named after Mick Fleetwood, the drummer, and John McVie, the bass player.
It's a bit like Faulty Towers, as you always like to say.
Oh, Connie Booth and John Cleese. Yeah, they were also fighting when they wrote that iconic sitcom. But so that's what made it really great. But I heard a song called I'd Rather Go Blind, as you know, when I first learned.
Etta James
and Rod Stewart. When I first learned how to play the guitar, that's one of the first songs I learned. And the version I used to hear the most was by a band called Chicken Shack. And I actually went to see them. I went to see them in concert. And the lead singer of that band was, she was then known as Christine Perfect. Then she joined Fleetwood Mac. So I've always loved that song. I've always loved her voice.
It's one of those bands that I know very little about. Of course, I know all their big hits thanks to you. But
everyone knows their songs.
No, I know. Yeah, I know those songs, but I think it's one of those bands which gets talked about a lot also because, as you're saying, of the personal history, the behind the scenes of what was going on in the band at the time when they rolled out some of their biggest hits. And I was never quite sure whether they were an American band or an English band. You tell me that...
It was actually an English band. Started off as an English band with Peter Green, but after a couple of years, they weren't that successful abroad. Then they hired two American. I don't know if they were married at the time, but they're going out with each other. They hired Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham.
So did their biggest hits come only when they crossed over to America?
And then all that East Coast sound kind of music happened. And it became huge.
Another piece of news from the world of pop music, rock music, not rock, pop music I suppose, big news is that Elton John is, as we already know, he's winding up.
But do you think he'll actually do his last ever tour?
He's doing his farewell tour because I'm sure he's getting on a bit and it takes a lot out of you, right, performing live.
And he's done it for years.
He's done it for years and years and years. So this is his formal goodbye to his fans around the world and his biggest goodbye. As Glastonbury said, it is going to be the mother of all send-offs. He's headlining the Pyramid stage at Glastonbury next summer. वैसे ही Glastonbury में तो अगर Elton John ना भी हो तो the tickets sell out in like some 30 seconds or 40 seconds or some ridiculous
this record. Year the price for tickets is unbelievable.
Is it 500 quid or something like that?
It's 3 something.
3 something. And no, as in if you're glamping and all or even staying over, I'm sure it all comes to nearly 500-600 quid a ticket, right?
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, but I can imagine a lot of people paying that money to watch Elton John perform live for the last time.
Also, everyone in the world has seen him perform. He's been performing non-stop for the last 30 years.
Which brings me to my next question. Do you remember the time when about 5-6 years ago, maybe even longer, when we saw another one of your favorites live at a jazz concert? I'm talking about Blowing in the Wind, Bob Dylan.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, I remember seeing.
I felt a bit cheated.
I've seen Bob Dylan a few times. Yeah.
I know to be able to say to the world that you've seen Bob Dylan live is a very big deal, especially if you're a music fan. But I was thoroughly cheated because he doesn't allow the cameras to pan very close, so you always see these long shots of Bob Dylan on stage.
Yeah, a bit picky.
Yeah, and B, I mean, this was. Maybe in his prime he was a force to reckon with and he wrote these songs that meant something to a generation, but now he's past his sell-by. Do you really want to see an old man with a guitar just, roll out some songs that people somewhere in the world identify with? I'm not sure.
Well, I hope no Bob Dylan fans are listening to this podcast.
No, with due respect to what he gave to the world and with due respect to what he means to not just music, but to the politics of the world as well, right? He's the one who really galvanized nations when he spoke about wars and injustice and this and that. I'm not taking that away from him. All I'm saying is, should you be gigging live when you ought to be sitting at home, tucked in bed with a hot water bottle, enjoying the football?
Don't ask me, ask Mick Jagger.
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
that's
another fantastic concert we saw.
You're talking about Elton John. One of the very first concerts I ever saw in my teenage years was called Wham! The Final. It was their final concert across the road here in Wembley. And
why was it their final concert? They were splitting up after that.
They're splitting up.
But I'm just saying it was still very early in their careers, right?
Yeah, it must be 86, 87 or something. And Elton John came on dressed as a chicken or something. And
Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me.
And they played Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. Yeah. So I remember that was one of the very first
Wasn't that a solo hit with George Michael, right? It wasn't part of Wham, right?
No, that's probably why he came on.
But this happens a lot at concerts here, right? When you suddenly have a surprise act who's just as famous as the main act. I'm getting my hopes really high now because next week, as you know, I'm off to see one of my all-time favorites, Bob Dylan.
Bryan Adams.
Bob
Dylan's on your mind, I see.
Yeah, Bryan Adams. And I'm very excited. And, of course, even if it didn't have any other star surprise acts, I'm perfectly happy with just Bryan Adams.
I'll tell you one where the surprise act was kind of blew me away. Was around the same time in the late 80s, we were teenagers, we went to see some concert. I think it was Free Nelson Mandela. Every star you could name was there.
Before my time.
Every star, from Sting to Stevie Wonder to
Rod Stewart.
whoever was there. And it finished with Dire Straits. But the Dire Straits guitarist, he wasn't able to come that day. I think his wife was giving birth. So they substituted him with Eric Clapton.
Oh my God.
So they had one Dire Straits song, one Eric Clapton song. One, that way.
And that's the kind of substitute you want, where the substitute almost threatens to overshadow the main act. But then I suppose they're both equally famous with their own set of fans. Eric Clapton, by the way, has famously retired, right, from live concerts. He's become quite a cranky old man now as well.
He has. Van Morrison has become cranky.
Yeah.
Phil Collins is retiring. It's all happening now.
Yeah. But away from live gigs and farewell concerts and all the rest of it, it is December. We're into December, Christmas month.
Do you think that this year has gone very quick?
Please, that is something everybody says this time of year. It hasn't gone any quicker than any other years. And that's how it feels like at the start of December, because suddenly you wake up to the fact that, OMG, this time next month, 2023.
Oh yes, 2023.
Yeah. It's a big year for us.
Why is it big?
We're not going to... for me.
Please don't start that story.
For me. Yeah. But it's a big year for me. It's a big year for our eldest son. And
have you ever been able to say that thing without linking your eldest son to your big birthday?
No, I've not.
The fact that he'll be going away to university?
Exactly. There are two things which are, one is happy, one is tragic. I'm happy that I'll be 50 next year, which is something I'm extremely grateful for. And I'm sad that we'll be one man down, one kid down most of the year, unless it is he's home for the holidays.
You have no idea how students work in this country, do you?
No, I'm sure they work the same way that we do in India.
He'll be coming home every couple of days with his washing.
Oh yeah, okay, theek hai chalo, whatever. As long as he does, I'll be happy. But
or he'll go my style and not wash for 2-3 months.
No, please, I hope not. And just disappear, then kind of leave the country and disappear into another country, which is also something you've done many times. So December, and I see that you are extremely fussy about having the advent calendar out and having the decorations out and the tree out. I think if your kids are not in primary school, you don't have to do it on the 1st of December.
Who's doing it for the kids? That's your first mistake.
Yeah.
And then traditions are traditions.
No, please. Nobody has the Christmas. You can't have the Christmas tree out. There's no rule that says it has to be up on the 1st of December. I know there is a rule that it has to come down by the 5th of Jan. That I follow. That I respect. But there's no rule in the book which says the Christmas tree has to go up on the 1st. That is purely to keep little kids entertained so that mom and dad can just, say, oh, look, Santa's coming. Oh, you better be good. Oh, you better eat your Brussels sprouts. Otherwise, you're not going to get your present. That's only for that. I think our kids are well past that age.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. First of all, it's quite important to keep Santa happy. Number 2, we need that tree up as soon as possible.
Yeah, we'll have it up. Don't worry. I'm not watching the England game, so I'll be busy probably finding the baubles and doing other bits and pieces. But it would be quite interesting to see which way the match goes. I mean, let's not forget.
Good job. You reminded me. It's going to start, I think, in about 8 minutes.
Very soon. And the last time England were in the finals of a big tournament, let's not forget what a shame our football fans brought to this country. All around the world, people couldn't stop talking about how disruptive and aggressive they were in the stadium. It wasn't a World Cup, I agree. But the last time they were
The Euros,
they were in a position to win anything big. So let's hope everybody's learnt their lesson and that we are going to be absolutely calm even when we are in this position, which I think it's about time we are in, right?
There's nothing wrong with putting a flare up your backside. Isn't that what happened in Leicester Square?
Okay, that's for another day. I think it's time for us to wrap up now and say bye-bye. We still have one more podcast to go before we say bye-bye to the year. So I'm sure we have a lot of reflection to do. A lot of reflecting to do. We have to think of the best bits, the best things about 2022, things that we're looking forward to next year, and yeah, things like that.
You ran out of things to say.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, bolte.
Take care. Before we see you for our next episode, which will be in 2 weeks' time, look after yourself. Thank you so much for tuning in and for supporting us. It means a great deal to us. We don't have to wait for our New Year's speech to say how much it means to us to see our analytics every week. That is what fills us with delight. Have an amazing December. We'll catch you in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye now.